Ragavan is one of the most popular win conditions in Modern right now, leaving many people struggling to find ways to beat it. A lot of players are put in the spot where they either have to beat the Ragavan players or join them. There's only one person in the Modern community that we can consistently go to get a great brew to beat the metagame, so that's why I got AspiringSpike on a call. AspiringSpike, big fan of the stream, I need your help. I hate Ragavan and I need one of your brews to beat it.
For you, Harry, I think I'd recommend this mono-white artifact deck I've been working on lately. This is a mono-white artifact-based mid-range deck that uses Portable Hull and Dispatch as removal. Every single card on the deck is offering card advantage with Ingenious Smith, Stoneforge Mystic, and in the mid to late game, you can use Power Conduit to take counters off of your sagas, Urza Saga and Restoration of Inganjo, to trigger the sagas over and over again and really just bury the Murktide opponent in card advantage.
How does that interaction work with Power Conduit and Saga?
So with Power Conduit, you can take a counter off any permanent, including a saga. So for Urza Saga, what you usually do is let Chapter 3 go on the stack, trigger, and then you can, before that ability resolves, take the counter off, put a +1 counter on any creature you control, and then you get to search your library for a cheap artifact while keeping your Urza Saga in play, tapping it, making an artifact token every turn. With Restoration of Inganjo, you get to reanimate something every single turn, or get a basic plains if you want to. And in the grindy matchups, it really just buries opponents.
That sounds exactly like something that I need. Please send me that deck list.
Will do. Good luck.
Round 1 begins by revealing Gigantha in our companion zone, mulling a land-heavy hand, but keeping a nice 6 and bottoming Power Conduit. To start the game, we both land go, and when the opponent forest goes with a snow-covered forest, it's clearly implying they have a nice Fang Kotal, so I slam the Stoneforge Mystic, getting a Kaldra complete. They have the Kotal on our end step, they untap, play a Soul Herder, attack for 1, and then flicker it. With our Saga ticking up to 2, it's going to be sacrificed next turn, so we can either go for Kaldra Complete plus Portable Hull, or we can Portable Hull plus Power Conduit. I decide to go for Portable Hull plus Power Conduit because they're playing Soul Herder, and I really want to lean in on this Urza Saga as we're trying to outvalue them, since they are a value-heavy deck. They collected company into another Soul Herder and an Endurance, do some flicker stuff on their end step, and we get to untap. It's time to use the Power Conduit Saga combo. With Dispatch off the top, I decide to Violin Kaldra Complete, save the Urza Saga, put a counter on the Trample First Strike creature, play my land, and hold up Dispatch. We now have Shadow Spear on following turns to gain a ton of life. Playing against a deck that plays both Ephemerate and Solitude, I decide not to dispatch anything because the only card I care about is Solitude. So they do a lot of shenanigans and we just untap. Drawing the Nettlecyst, we can actually go for lethal by getting Springleaf Drum off the Urza Saga. However, I don't think that's the best decision because we are trying to play around Solitude. So instead, I'm going to pump the Germ token, put the Shadow Spear on it, attack, and then have many options with Stoneforge Mystic, Urza Saga, as well as Dispatch on the opponent's turn, and go for lethal next turn. Ephemerate comes off Rebound on their upkeep, they start to do a load of Soul Herder things. They have main deck Orvar, which is pretty interesting, but they bash in with the Soul Herders, we Violin the Nettlecyst, as well as use Dispatch on the other Soul Herder, so we wipe all their value. Then they scoop up the game. Going into boarding, we want 4 Hollowed Moonlight in, and then take out the clunky stuff. Dispatch isn't good against Ephemerate, Needle, Lantern, and Lightning Greaves are all very slow and very situational. Going into game 2, we reveal the Gigantha and keep a nice Urza Saga hand with some early interaction. Now I do want to show you the whole game, however it's 40 minutes long, so instead I'm going to show you some key moments as it's too long to fit it into this video. Now we do get to use the Restoration Saga to get a ton of value. What's great is we sacrificed our Urza Saga, got it back by discarding a Plains, then we could play Power Conduit. This led into an extremely grindy game as they had Soul Herder as well as many draw spell abilities, as well as they found a Risen Reef. Now to compete with all the construct tokens that we were producing, the opponent managed to find all 4 Solitudes in the top 45 cards, allowing them to stay alive, pairing with things like Night of Autumn and copy spells to keep looping them. Now what eventually happened was the opponent had to draw so many cards to find their answers that they almost milled themselves, so we kept leaning on the fact that our life total was at 81 and it was very hard for them to attack us, to attempt to mill them because they kept producing chumpers. Now towards the end of the game, they had to use a ton of Ephemerates to wipe my whole board. They kept drawing cards because of Risen Reef, Orvar, as well as just their draw step, and they made it down to 9 cards in library, and they almost managed to mill themselves. However, with a few combat steps, we did die and had to go to game 3. In game 3 though, we kept a really nice hand on the play with Esper Sentinel and Ingenious Smith to try and aggro out the opponent, as well as to draw a lot of cards. Now, it doesn't come often on my channel, but the opponent did play slow enough to the point where they're going to time out, and this game mattered more on their clock than my board. However, we set up a really nice board with triple Ingenious Smith and got a Stoneforge Mystic down. The Knight of Autumn did gain them life to buy them time, however, I believe that if they did have a fresh clock, we still would have won this game because we had such a big board presence and there's not much they could have really done about it. I did not play this match to beat them by the clock. In game 2 we had a chance to win by mill, as well as they're playing an extremely slow deck and we're playing a grindy deck to fight them with it. What do you think about timing out opponents? Let me know in the comment section down below, but the intention of this game was not to time them out. Going into the next round, we reveal Gigantha on the draw, and we keep a nice double Saga Esper Sentinel hand alongside Power Conduit to gain us a load of value. Our opponent starts off with a Springleaf Drum, we lead with an Esper Sentinel, and they are clearly on hammer time when they play a Stoneforge Mystic. They did fetch a Colossus Hammer with the Stoneforge, so I'm worried that I'm gonna die, but with only one castable in the hand, we have to play Power Conduit and pray. They play a Sigardizade, we draw a nice Portable Hole, and they hammer plus Shadow Spear to gain a load of life and to deal a lot of damage. Finding an Ingenious Myth, I lead with that and we find a Pithing Needle, leaving our only option to Portable Hole the Stoneforge Mystic and hope that they can't do anything big on their turn with the Saga getting a hammer. They just make a construct, equip hammer to that construct, and pass back the turn. As we have a Power Conduit and an Urza's Saga ticking up to 3, let's do the nice trick that AspiringSpike taught us, put the counter on the Ingenious Myth, and fetch up a Shadow Spear. Now I tank for a long time because I'm trying to work out is there any way that I can win this game, and it's all because of Shadow Spear on the opponent's side of the table. Now what I end up going for is equipping the Shadow Spear to my own Ingenious Myth, playing my Pithing Needle, naming Shadow Spear, so they can't equip their Shadow Spear to their construct, but my Shadow Spear is already on my creature. This means that if they attack in, we can chump block, and then on future turns, start trying to gain more life to get back into the game, and maybe even equip the Nettle Cyst onto the Ingenious Myth. Now the plan does seem to work when they float mana with their Urza's Saga, they fetch up a Memnite, play a Pure Steel Paladin, equip their Pure Steel Paladin with the hammer, and only attack in. We chump with the Sentinel, and the Magic Gods bless us with a Portable Hole off the top of the deck. We start the turn off like every other turn with the Saga and a Power Conduit, we put the counter on the Ingenious Myth, take off the Saga with 3, fetch up a Springleaf Drum, and we start our turn with Portable Hole. Now, if you would like, you can play Nettle Cyst, equip it to the Ingenious Myth, and attack in, but that actually kills you to a third hammer. So instead, I attack in and opt to make a construct with Urza's Saga. What's crazy is they actually had the hammer, they attack in, and they equip the hammer onto the Memnite. I'm not sure I agree with this because you have an Inkmoth Nexus on the table and you could probably kill me through Infect, but is what it is. We get our Nettle Cyst down, we get a Stoneforge Mystic, we get the Caldra, we bash in, we now have loads of blockers, and it works in our favor because they find Pure Steel Paladin, but again, they still can't do much with it. I think the opponent should have tried to kill us with Inkmoth Nexus. As we go to combat, attack with all, and we managed to kill them. Now, game 1 was a great game, however, game 2, we lost to the Mega Nuts. We couldn't do anything. They had Urza's Saga getting Pithing Needle, meaning that they were guaranteed to kill us through Infect. In game 3, they had 2 well-timed spells, as you can see in their graveyard. They had both March of Otherworldly Light to get rid of our sideboard card, as well as Blacksmith Skill to counter our other sideboard card that destroys an artifact or enchantment. So they won because they managed to find Shadow Spear from Urza's Saga, and just had a load of constructs that we couldn't beat. Going to the final round, we played against one Ragavan deck this league, and let's see how we do against it. On the play, you might think that this hand is crazy, but in my opinion, I actually think it's very playable. You can sacrifice Soulguide Lantern to draw a card, you can use Nettle Cyst to make white mana with the Springleaf Drum to cast the Restoration to get a Plains, as well as Urza's Saga can do many busted things just with colorless mana. I'm going to keep it and show you that it's good. So we start off with Springleaf Drum, they have a Thoughtseize and they take our Nettle Cyst. So we follow up with a Soulguide Lantern and an Urza's Saga and can sacrifice it to draw a card if need be. They follow up with the Dothri Voidwalker, showing me that they are 100% on Rakdos Sacrifice. This means that I don't want to sacrifice the Soulguide Lantern because we want to stop the reanimation spells. But top decking Portable Hole, we can make a construct, tap the Springleaf Drum for white mana, cast the Portable Hole, and extremely blow out the opponent. Spike was right about eating up mid-range decks, they Thoughtseize us and concede. It did feel like an early concession with 4 cards left in hand, but boarding we want the Sword of Feast and Famine and the Soulguide Lantern and take out the slow Pithing Needle as well as the Lightning Greaves. We start off game 2 by revealing Gigantha in the Companion Zone, and we're going to keep a colorless land hand again. This is because Urza's Saga is one of the best cards in the matchup, it can't be discarded by Thoughtseize or Grief, and we're on the draw so we have many draw steps for a white source, and we can use Springleaf Drum and the construct again. I don't particularly like to mulligan against Grief decks, especially when you have playable hands like this. They turn 1 Thoughtseize, they take our Stoneforge Mystic, and we rip a white source off the top of the deck. Now we can slam Esper Sentinel. It's also important if they led the game with a turn 1 Ragavan, we'd top deck the white source and then Portable Hole it, so that's also great to know too. They just land go, and the Thoughtseize bug exists. Stoneforge Mystic off the top lets slam it and get Sword of Feast and Famine. I feel really bad for the opponent here. Our draw steps really helped us out and gave us what we needed, but let's reiterate, if they just Thoughtseized me, played their land and said go, this Urza Saga still would have been a great follow-up play. So while the top decks were great, I believe the hand was still well positioned against a Thoughtseize go, land go. Over the next few turns, the game begins to slow down because I'm trying to get value out of my Urza Saga, and they cast another Seasoned Pyromancer, just cantripping. They attack, we block, we make a second token, get a Soul Guide Lantern to prevent them from doing a reanimation tactic, and we really start to get a big board. They do, however, equalize the board when they get to do a pseudo-engineered explosives that also exiles all the graveyards next turn, which is really annoying for this restoration in our hand. I decide to play the restoration anyways because we can still get value with it, and I also follow up with Esper Sentinel, looking to get more artifacts into play to make this Nettle Cyst big. We ship back the turn, all the graveyards are exiled, and they actually just play their land and pass back. We top deck an Ingenious Smith, so we can do a cool tactic here with the restoration. We can discard the Ingenious Smith and then reanimate it because of the wording of the trigger. This saves us a lot of mana, and finds us another Nettle Cyst. Now we have a few options here. We can double Nettle Cyst by using Stoneforge Mystic and hardcasting a Nettle Cyst, but I go for Sword of Feast and Famine because it gives protection from the saga that's about to flip. They do, however, get to Undying the Seasoned Pyromancer, which is a lot of value. They get in with the Seasoned Pyromancer, hitting me for 3, and then follow up with a 5-mana Fury in the second main, killing my Sentinel. Our saga flips, I cast one Nettle Cyst, looking to violin the other one. They play an Engineered Explosives on 0 and sack it in their first main phase, go to combat, and now we can violin the other Nettle Cyst and blow them out in combat, so they scoop up the game. Overall, we managed to 4-1 with this deck. I really liked it, and for you gambling degens, I'll open up the chess. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out this video because YouTube thinks you'll like it.